Joining us now, Floyd family attorney Chris Stewart, part of the team that won the massive settlement from the city of Minneapolis. So, Mr. Stewart, thanks so much for joining us. You heard the attorney for Derek Chauvin say he did exactly what he was trained to do in reacting to George Floyd, illicit drugs in his system. I wonder what you make of that defense tonight.
Yeah, we weren't aware that the officers in Minnesota were trained to murder. And I think the police chief who's going to be testifying is going to vehemently disagree with the attorney for Derek Chauvin. The drugs in the system, all of the other arguments, they have to argue something because their client was caught on tape murdering someone.
The prosecution began the day by playing the entire video of Chauvin's knee on George Floyd's neck for a greater period of time. We've thought about 8:46, right? 8 minutes, 46 seconds. Now 9 minutes, 29 seconds, based partly on new video from an eyewitness, plus also the police camera video. What is the impact of that length of time, in your view, on the defense and the prosecution?
I mean, it's heartbreaking to know that, the torture lasted even longer, because that's what it is. It was torture. This isn't the standard situation where an officer has to make a split-second decision and pull the gun or pull the trigger. No, this was premeditated torture. He smugly sat on top of him. He looked at the crowd. He puffed up his chest. That type of individual can't be walking the streets and definitely can't wear a badge.
One of the star witnesses, you might say, for the prosecution, the 911 dispatcher, she testified her instincts were telling her something was wrong. In fact, she thought the video from the scene was frozen because the position of the police officer on George Floyd's neck seemed to be lasting longer than she thought was, possible, right? I mean, how important was that testimony to you?
I mean, Jim, think about it. The mind-blowing things that have come out. Their own 911 operator called the police on the police. A firefighter was a witness and was begging them to get off him so she could check the pulse. There were witnesses screaming, "You're killing him." George is screaming, "You're killing him." And justice still isn't guaranteed for an African American. That's mind-blowing.
Okay, so on the flip side, you've heard the defense of Derek Chauvin talk about the use of drugs here, right? And in fact, the judge has allowed a previous arrest from 2019 where the allegation is that George Floyd ingested drugs prior to the arrest. And the allegation is prior to this arrest in 2020, he did the same thing. So tell me your reaction to that allegation and the relevance to the trial at this point.
Well, it's not relevant because doing drugs, any citizen that does, it's not a death sentence. You don't get executed by a police officer because you made a mistake or you're battling in life. This wasn't like he's some hardcore drug addict. He had a job. He was a security guard until COVID hit. He had a family. He was a father. So, they can paint whatever picture they want of him, but the reality speaks for itself. But just because someone has issues in this country, they don't get murdered by a rogue police officer, period.
One thing I noted earlier this morning as I was watching this press conference from the Floyd family lawyers was them noting the civil settlement prior to the criminal case, saying the city has already settled, right, to say that there was a wrong committed here. They noted that in public, right? That's not by accident. And I'm curious what point you think they were trying to make there.
I think they were accepting reality, that an officer of theirs committed murder. Think about Walter Scott. We settled that case for a historic amount before he got 20 years, and he got 20 years. And so, the civil case is separate from the criminal case. It settles when it settles, and the city took responsibility. They did the right thing. The only person that hasn't taken responsibility is the man that's sitting there taking notes the entire time, paying more attention in this case they did to taking a pulse.
I understand this, Chris, but you know these trials are competitive, right? And
Yeah.
you have the defense making their argument here. What's your reaction to the defense argument that George Floyd had a history? How do you respond to that if you're in the courtroom today?
Yeah, that history did not have anything to do with being killed with a knee on his neck. Derek Chauvin has a history. He has multiple incidents of abusing people. What about his history? That didn't seem to factor in while he had his knee on George Floyd's neck. So it's a he said, she said game, but the video speaks for itself.
All right. Chris Stewart, Floyd family attorney, thanks so much. I know there are a lot of difficult issues here, and we're very sensitive to what we're seeing on the screen right there, right now, live pictures from Minneapolis. Thanks very much. Well, perspective.